Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 2024 election night. This will be a scenario where election night will take place. This will be a dream scenario for the Democratic Party. Don't worry, there will be a Republican one in due time. I just still need to figure that out. I want to thank Let's Talk Elections for bringing this up. They were the ones that gave me the idea. I mean, they didn't email me the idea, but I saw it on there and I figured, hey, could I do 2024? They did 2020. So yeah, welcome to election night. Here are some basic classifications. Yellow is meaning polls closing or too early to call / too close to call. Blue is in any shade is where Democrats have won. Red is GOP won, and purple for the House means that there is a evenly split control. And we will kick off with the Biden's approval rating. In this scenario, Biden's approval rating is up by 2. Bush, I understand that President Bush had a very high approval rating, but he had help. Now, and that was a different time period. Now, today's world, that really doesn't help. And we will kick things off with polls closing in the following states: Indiana and Kentucky, 19 electoral votes, 1 Senate seat, and 15 congressional districts. In the state of Kentucky, 8 electoral votes will be awarded to Donald Trump. He will win those 8 electoral votes. In Indiana, 11 electoral votes, too early to call. This is shocking. Joe Biden trailing Donald Trump by 2 points. 20% of the vote in, still too early to call. Indiana, in the Senate elections, Joe Hogsett is trailing Jim Banks, the former in the Senate election, trailing Jim Banks by 2 points. This is a shocker. Democrats weren't expected. In Indiana, the 7 out of the 9 congressional districts will go to the Republicans. The Republicans tried contesting the first congressional district, but they failed miserably and pulled campaign ads there. In the state of Kentucky, 5 out of the 6 congressional districts will be awarded to Republicans in Kentucky. The sole Democratic district will remain intact. We will now commence. Now the following polls will close in the following states: Vermont, New Hampshire, Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina, and Florida. 75 electoral votes at stake, 3 Senate seats at stake, 2 governor seats at stake, and 63 congressional districts. In the state of Vermont, 3 electoral votes, Joe Biden will be the projected winner. In New Hampshire, previously a swing state, their 4 electoral votes will be going to Joe Biden by the biggest margin they've seen since Lyndon B. Johnson. In the state of Virginia, 13 electoral votes will be won by Joe Biden, becoming the biggest victory, having a greater victory than 4 years ago. In Georgia, a swing state, it is currently too early to call right now. Donald Trump having a commanding lead over Joe Biden, but we expect that to narrow up in the coming hours, especially when more blue counties start to report their votes in. In South Carolina, Donald Trump is currently ahead of Joe Biden by 9 points. Currently too early to call. 9 electoral votes at stake. In Florida, 30 electoral votes, previously not to be considered a swing state in this election cycle, but due to Trump's indictment in Miami of mishandling classified documents, the Biden campaign had really hammered on that, and Floridians were really had a real disapproval of that. In Vermont, the Senate race, Bernie Sanders will win re-election. In the state of Virginia, Tim Kaine will win re-election for another term. Previously thought to retire for this year, but considered a run for this one. In the state of Florida, the Senate elections, Lauren Brooke trailing against Rick Scott. Rick Scott gained massive unpopularity in the state of Florida when he proposed his plan for the GOP Senate. He proposed cutting Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, which was deeply unpopular in the state of Florida. His abortion views have not helped him as well. Too early to call. In the state of Vermont, the governor's race, Phil Scott is the projected winner for another 2-year term. Vermont and New Hampshire are the 2 states that have 2-year governor terms. But what is shocking is that Vermont elected a Republican governor. Phil Scott gained massive popularity when he decided to vote for the Democratic nominee, Joe Biden, over Donald Trump. In the state of New Hampshire, the governor's race, Chris Sununu, will also win re-election. Much like Phil Scott in Vermont, he also voted for Joe Biden, which gained massive popularity amongst moderates and liberals in New Hampshire. In the state of Vermont, their sole House congressional district will be in Democratic hands. In the state of New Hampshire, the 2 congressional districts will be held on by Democrats. The first one was contested by Republicans, but failed to get a majority in there. In the state of Virginia, currently Democrats will have the majority in the House, but currently 3 seats are too early to call right now. Republicans are known to win 2 seats right now, but 3 of those seats right now are currently too early to call. In the state of Georgia, no contested seats here. That 2nd congressional district, Republicans tried, but they failed when they realized polling data showed that they were massively behind, and they pulled ads almost immediately within the election cycle. There is a court case being heard, and it is being awaited right now, and this map might be overturned. In the state of South Carolina, the 1st congressional district is currently too early to call. Nancy Mace is fighting for political life after she endorsed Donald Trump for the 2024 presidential election. That is her sole reason why most Republicans are alienating her and going for more conservative Democrat. But Republicans will hold the majority in here, and person running my IT department will get fired. In the state of Florida, shocking, 5 seats not called right now, but Republicans will retain the majority in the House districts. Currently, there are 5 too early to call, with only one of those seats being single digits back in 2022. We can now say the following polls will close in the following states: Ohio, West Virginia, and North Carolina. 37 electoral votes, 1 Senate seat, 2 governor's seats, and 31 House districts. In the state of Ohio, 17 electoral votes, Donald Trump in the lead against Joe Biden by around 3 points, but we expect that to narrow up a bit more. In the state of West Virginia, 4 electoral votes will be awarded to Donald Trump. He is the winner of those 4 electoral votes. In the state of North Carolina, a battleground state where Donald Trump won by a single percentage, there are 16 electoral votes. Currently, Joe Biden in the lead with an 8-point advantage. We shall see in the coming hours. In the state of West Virginia, on the Senate elections, Joe Manchin trailing against former Governor Jim Justice. Jim Justice announced his Senate bid right after Donald Trump announced his presidential bid in hopes to gain the seats for the Republicans. But Joe Manchin has alienated a bunch of Democratic votes for the Republicans since he's turned more conservative. But will his conservative base, him moving more towards the right, help him in his journey to re-election? Well, so far it's too early to call. In the state of Ohio in the Senate elections, Sherrod Brown running against Frank Larso. Currently, Sherrod Brown has a 19-point lead against Frank Lars. I believe that's pronounced their name, but we can very much so say that Sherrod Brown will most likely win the race because he had a 20-point lead in the polls. In the state of West Virginia, Mac Warner will win the governorship, retaining it for another 4-year term. This will continue on a very horrible streak for the Democrats. This used to be one of the longest held seats for Democrats, but now is going to be one of the longest held seats for Republicans. In North Carolina, the governor's race, Josh Steen vying for the seat that Cooper had to give up because of term limits. Mark Robinson, the lieutenant governor, currently ahead of Josh Stein, the attorney general, currently too early to call. In Ohio, in the congressional districts, the majority will be held by Republicans, but 3 seats are currently too early to call. One of the seats held by the Democrats in the 2022 midterm elections, two of those were very close. 2 of those were very close in the 2022 midterm elections. 15 congressional districts, right there. In West Virginia, the 2 congressional districts will be held by the Republicans. Currently 0% of the vote in, but we can confirm that. In North Carolina, 4 congressional districts currently not called. Democrats were able to split this in half, but some of those districts Democrats were able to outperform expectations, therefore vying for the seats. We have a major race projection, guys. I repeat, a major race projection. We can now project that Indiana, their 11 electoral votes, will go to Donald Trump by a smaller margin than than the previous 4 years. What is shocking is that it's going to be a very small margin of victory. The 11 electoral votes awarded for the former president. In Indiana, the governor's race, Mike Braun, the former senator who retired to run for this governor's race, will win the election. We can now say the following polls will be closing in the following states: Maine, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, the District of Columbia, Maryland, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Illinois, Michigan, Missouri, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, North Dakota, and South Dakota. 202 electoral votes at stake, 14 Senate seats, 3 governor seats, and 161 House seats. We can now project that 3 out of the 4 electoral votes will be awarded toward Joe Biden. Joe Biden will be the winner for those 3 out of the 4 electoral votes. The 2nd congressional district is currently too early to call right now. In Massachusetts, their 11 electoral votes will go to Joe Biden. 11 electoral votes. In Rhode Island, 4 electoral votes will be awarded for Joe Biden. He is winning England by the biggest landslide Democrats have seen, and they haven't seen these since Senate elections. In Connecticut, same here, 7 electoral votes will be awarded to Joe Biden. In New Jersey, 14 electoral votes, a bigger margin than Obama won it back in 2012, back when when a major hurricane hit, Obama was able to win it by 17 points. Joe Biden is expected to outperform him. 14 electoral votes awarded to the president. In Delaware, his home state, Joe Biden will win his state by one of the biggest margins he has seen in the state back in his Senate days. 3 electoral votes. In the state of Maryland, 10 electoral votes will be awarded to Joe Biden. This state is constantly getting more and more Democratic, and we can see that when county by county results come in. In the state of Pennsylvania, a shocker coming up: 19 electoral votes, a huge battleground. Former President Donald Trump needed to win this state. It looks like Donald Trump is going to have to look for different avenues to be elected president. Currently, Joe Biden is projected 19 electoral votes from the state of Pennsylvania. In the state of Tennessee, 11 electoral votes will be awarded to Donald Trump. 11 electoral votes for him. And in Alabama, no shocker here, 9 electoral votes will be awarded to the former president. In the state of Mississippi, 6 electoral votes will be awarded to Donald Trump. No shocker. In Illinois, 19 electoral votes will be awarded to Joe Biden. There was a fear that this could be dipping into the likely column, but once the October surprise came, it was clear that Joe Biden was in a trajectory that he would win it in a landslide. In the state of Michigan, a battleground and my home state, 15 electoral votes will be awarded to the President of the United States. Joe Biden will win this by a commanding lead. In the state of Missouri, it's currently too early to call. Donald Trump has a decisive lead over Joe Biden, 16-point lead. In particular, 10 electoral votes at stake. In the state of Texas, 40 electoral votes, the second most populous state, a must-win for the former president. Donald Trump currently leading against Joe Biden by 3 points. Currently too early to call. In the state of Oklahoma, 7 electoral votes will be awarded to Donald Trump. In Kansas, 6 electoral votes currently too early to call. Donald Trump, like in Missouri, has 16-point lead. Currently too early to call. In North Dakota, Donald Trump will win their 3 electoral votes right there in the oil belt. In South Dakota, same as well. South Dakota has only gone with hasn't gone with North Dakota in only one election, and that was back in the 1910s against Woodrow Wilson. Hold on. Yep, that's right about. Yep, just making sure. In the state of Maine, and then the Senate election, Agnes King will win re-election for another 6-year term. There was speculation whether he was going to run for another term due to his age. He is an independent that caucuses with the Democratic Party, but he will win re-election. In Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren is the projected winner for the Senate race in Massachusetts. In Rhode Island, Sheldon Whitehouse is a projected winner. He will be the Democratic senator from Rhode Island for the next 6 years. In Connecticut, Chris Murray, a huge advocate for gun reform, has made him very popular in the state of Connecticut, especially after the Oxford shooting, the Sandy Hook shooting, the Uvalde shooting in Texas, and more shootings that have happened over the past several years. Has filibustered many bills just to make sure that this issue is widely stated. In the state of New Jersey, Bob Menendez, even though he's under indictment and is currently facing federal charges right now for corruption, he will win the Senate race. In the state of Delaware, Lisa Blunt Rochester will win for her first term for the Senate seat in Delaware. In the state of Maryland, David Throne will win his election for a first term in the state of Maryland. Not a shocker. In the state of Pennsylvania, Bob Casey Jr., even after being diagnosed with cancer, had still decided to run for re-election, winning by a slightly bigger margin than he did back in 2018. In the state of Tennessee, Marsha Blackburn will win re-election for a second term, underperforming from her previously thought. In the state of Mississippi, Roger Wicker is the projected winner, another Republican for six years in Mississippi. In Michigan, the Senate elections, currently Elisa Slotkin leading against Nikki Snyder by about 19 points. This is a major race in case Republicans want to retake the Senate. In Missouri, Quinton Lucas against Josh Hawley. Right now, Quinton Lucas has around a 5-point lead against Josh Hawley. This is shocking because red counties are reporting, and the reporting shows that Josh Hawley, the incumbent, is trailing in those counties. This is a huge shocker for the Republicans. In the state of Texas, Nathan Johnson, endorsed by Beto O'Rourke, is currently winning against Ted Cruz by about 5 points. Ted Cruz, one of the most unpopular senators in the country, faces massive backlash for his language towards LGBTQ use, major ethnic minorities, and foreign advocates. Right now he is facing his toughest re-election since now. In North Dakota, Kevin Cramer will win re-election for another 6-year term after defeating the Democrat Kitty Heidkamp for re-election. In Maine, the 2 congressional districts will be won by the Democrats. The Republicans thought they had a chance in Maine's 2nd congressional district, but they pulled ads in there once polling numbers showed that they were going to lose heavily. In Massachusetts, again, the person that runs this, I'm sorry, this is just horrible, will be fired right now. They will be fired. Hey, you hear that? You're fired. In the state of Massachusetts, the 9 congressional districts will be awarded to Democrats. In Rhode Island, their 2 congressional districts will be awarded for the Democrats. In Connecticut, same here, the 5 congressional districts will be awarded to Democrats. In New Jersey, there are 12 congressional districts. Currently, Democrats hold the majority in the state, but 2 races are too early to call. Republicans have 1 congressional district that they have. So far, it is too early to call. In the state of Delaware, the sole congressional district will be won by Democrats. In the state of Maryland, Democrats thought they had a chance in the 1st congressional district. They campaigned heavily, but it will just be a single-digit margin for Harris. But so far, Democrats will hold on to all of their seats. In the state of Pennsylvania, 3 seats have currently not been called. Currently, Democrats hold a majority, but they are fighting to gain more seats in the next coming hours. In Tennessee, 9 congressional districts, currently one of them not being called. And the seat was actually held by a Democrat back in 2020, but then retired knowing that he would lose re-election because of gerrymandering. In Alabama, currently seven congressional districts, Republicans will win the 6. There is a current dispute whether this map is legal or not. So far, courts have found it illegal, and for the 2026 election cycle, a second majority black district will be drawn. In Mississippi, 4 congressional districts will be awarded. 3 of the 4 congressional districts will be awarded to Republicans. In Illinois, Republicans thought they had a chance in 3 out of the 17 congressional districts to gain. 3 out of the 14 congressional districts held by Democrats, but so far they failed, and once polling numbers came out, it showed that they were deeply unpopular and deeply out of touch with the world of today. In the state of Michigan, 3 congressional districts currently not called around the Lansing region, the suburbs of Grand Rapids, and the suburbs of Metro Detroit, currently not being called. In the state of Missouri, the majority will be held by Republicans, but the one sole congressional district around the St. Louis suburbs is currently too early to call. In the state of Texas, a shocker, Republicans will hold the majority in the congressional districts, but 3 congressional districts, 2 of them held by Republicans, 1 held by a Democrat, are currently too early to call. In Oklahoma, all 5 congressional districts will be held on by Republicans. In Kansas, the sole 1 congressional district held by Democrats will continue to be held by Democrats, though the first congressional district was thought to be competitive, but only will be in single digits. In North Dakota, the sole 1 congressional district will be held by Republicans. And same here in South Dakota, and whenever North Dakota goes, South Dakota will also go, and vice versa. In Delaware, in the governor's race, Colin Davis will win in her first election here in the governor's race. In Missouri, in the governor's race, Bill Eigel is currently leading against Crystal Quaid by 3 points currently for governor's race. Too early to call. In North Dakota, Tammy Miller, the winner for the next 4 years as governor of North Dakota, she will win her first re-election after the governor of North Dakota decided to run for president as a last-minute resort to ditch Donald Trump. We have the following poll closing in the following states. Arkansas, 6 electoral votes and 4 congressional districts at stake. That will be awarded to the former president of the United States. 4 electoral votes awards to the former president. And in congressional districts, the 4 congressional districts will be held on by Republicans. There is another dispute whether this map is illegal, but it is unlikely to pass. We have major race projections coming up right now. In the state of South Carolina, the former president will win their 9 electoral votes, but by the smallest margin they've seen since Bill Clinton losing the state twice. Currently, 9 electoral votes voted for the former president. We have polls closing in the following states: New York, Louisiana, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, and Arizona. 96 electoral votes, 8 Senate seats, and 76 congressional districts currently at stake. We have the state of New York, the 28 electoral votes, the solid blue state, the Empire State, 28 electoral votes we awarded to Joe Biden, the President of the United States. We have Louisiana, the 8 electoral votes awarded to Donald Trump. Not as big as a margin for Democrats, is not as small, but they wanted a bit better performance, but a good performance for the former president. In Wisconsin, 10 electoral votes. Joe Biden currently leading against Donald Trump by 16 points. We are calling it too early to call, even though Joe Biden was leading by a commanding lead in the polls. But currently, we're waiting for more conservative counties to come in to see whether Joe Biden will actually win. In Minnesota, 10 electoral votes, thought to be a battleground this year, and in 2020, after Hillary Clinton only won the state by 1 point and gave Democrats a scare, but this time Joe Biden made sure that he had a commanding lead in this tumultuous presidential campaign. 10 electoral votes for the president. In the state of Iowa, a shocker for Joe Biden. Joe Biden currently leading against Donald Trump by 4 points. Too early to call. The rural state, will it turn blue for the first time since 2012? In Nebraska, 3 out of the 5 electoral votes will be awarded to Donald Trump. The 2nd Congressional District and the 1st Congressional District are currently too early to call. In the state of Wyoming, 3 electoral votes awarded to Donald Trump. In Colorado, 10 electoral votes, one of the fastest growing states in the country, will be awarded to Joe Biden. This is turning out to be a solid blue state. We can confirm that Colorado is now a solid blue state. In New Mexico, 5 electoral votes will be awarded to the President of the United States. In Arizona, a battleground state, 11 electoral votes. Joe Biden currently leading against Donald Trump by 11 points. We're waiting for more rural counties to report in. Currently 38% of the vote in. In New York, in the Senate elections, Kristen Gillibrand will win for another 6-year term. In Wisconsin, the Senate race, even though we haven't called the presidential election, presidential race in Wisconsin, we can call the Senate race in Wisconsin. Tammy Baldwin will win for another 6-year term. In the Minnesota Senator race, Amy Klobuchar will win re-election for another 6-year term, winning by her enormous margins that she is known for. She has been winning her races by like 30, 40 points, but obviously has a drop down due to Donald Trump's involvement, but she will remain having giant leads in the Senate race. In the state of Nebraska, Deb Fischer will win re-election for another 6-year term. Democrats thinking they could retake the Senate seat they had back in 2012, but are currently failing to do that. In Nebraska, in the Senate special election, when Casey decided to retire and be part of Florida, Pete Ricketts, the former governor, will win the remaining years he has left. In the Senate race in Wyoming, John Barroso will win re-election for another 6-year term. In New Mexico, Martin Henrich will win re-election for another 6-year term. In Arizona, currently we have a 3-way race against the independent Kyrsten Sinema, the incumbent, Blake Masters, who tried to vie for re-election back in the 2022 midterm elections, and in the state, and Ruben Gallego, the Democratic nominee. Currently, the Democratic nominee seems to be winning, but as we all know, Kyrsten Sinema might win due to vote splitting. Currently, too early to call. In the state of New York, the 26 House districts, currently 9 of them we cannot call right now. Democrats have gained the majority in the state, but they are vying for more seats since the last election. If they just held on to their seats here, the 4 seats, they would have retained the majority for the House. Currently, too early to call. In Louisiana, you hear that? You're fired. Okay, Arkansas, really not Arkansas, but the 6 congressional districts. Currently, there's a court dispute whether there should be another black district in here, a majority African American district. But currently, that hasn't happened yet. But the 6 congressional districts have been called. In the state of Wisconsin, the 8 congressional districts, 2 of them have not been called. One previously held by a Democrat, and the other used to be held by. Is currently too early to call. It was a single-digit raise back in 2022, a shocker for most Democrats and most Republicans, but currently too early to call. In the state of Minnesota, 8 congressional districts, currently 2 of them too early to call. One of them has a Democratic incumbent, while the other one, Donald Trump, won by a huge margin, and currently Democrats are trying to retake that seat. In the state of Iowa, 3 congressional districts are currently too early to call. One of them is called for the Republicans, but Democrats have massively campaigned in here and have tried, and polling numbers shows that they have a slight lead over the Republicans. But will there be a polling error? We shall see. In Nebraska, the 2nd congressional district is currently too early to call. Republicans have won the 1st and 3rd congressional district, but it's currently too early to call. In the state of Wyoming, the 1st congressional district that was previously held by Liz Cheney is currently too early to call. Well, it's not too early to call, as we can call it for Republicans. If we can't call it for Republicans, then there's something wrong. But currently, Wyoming has won. The Republicans have won. In the state of Colorado, the 8 congressional districts right now, Lone Bobart's district is currently under threat by Democrats, even when they have campaigned heavily in there, and her win back in 2022, it was such a failure for her. She won by the smallest margin she could think of, and is currently fighting for her political life. Currently too early to call. In the state of New Mexico, the 2nd congressional district is currently too early to call. Democrats are vying for this again, making sure that they win it. If they can win it again, their gerrymandering has worked. In the state of Arizona, 9 congressional districts, currently 4 of them is too early to call. One of them being a shocker, considering that it was single digits back in the governor's race and the Senate race. Democrats have poured massive amounts of money in that congressional district to see if they can win it. This is the current standings for the presidential election. 181 electoral votes for incumbent Joe Biden, while 91 electoral votes for the former president Donald Trump. 164 of those electoral votes have not been called. And now we go to the Senate. Currently, nobody has outright gained the majority, has taken the majority. Republicans have 44 Senate seats, while Democrats have 42. The 8 Senate seats have currently not been called. In the governor's race, currently Republicans have 25 governor seats. 2 of those governor seats have not been called, while Democrats have 21 governor seats. In the House, Republicans have 153, while Democrats have 147. 52 of those seats have not been called yet. Currently who will be the majority in there. That's currently too early to call. We can now say that the following polls will close in the following states: Montana, Idaho, Utah, Nevada, and Oregon. In the state of Montana, is currently too early to call. Donald Trump leading by 2 points, one of the smallest margins known in American history for Montana. Currently too early to call. In the state of Idaho, 4 electoral votes, one of the fastest growing GOP states, is awarded to Donald Trump. In the state of Utah, Joe Biden trailing against Donald Trump by about 17 points, 6 electoral votes at stake. We are confident that Donald Trump will win this state, but most likely by a smaller margin than previously expected. In the state of Nevada, it used to be a bellwether state, a swing state, a purple state, whatever you want to call it. 6 electoral votes will be awarded to the President of the United States. In the state of Oregon, a growing blue state, will be awarded to Joe Biden. In the Senate race in Montana, Jon Tester leading against former Representative Ryan Zinke by 17 points. But this is mainly because of very blue counties reporting. Counties that usually tend to vote blue tend to have a bigger margin in Senate elections when voting for incumbents, especially like Jon Tester. We're still waiting on more red/conservative moderate counties to put in their votes right now. But abortion rights and how to treat veterans was a major issue. Jon Tester heavily campaigned on that, and currently polling numbers show that he was heavily favored to win this race. In the Senate race in Utah, Mitt Romney, the former governor of Massachusetts, will win re-election for another 6-year term. After criticizing Donald Trump for his involvement in January 6th and his deterioration of the democratic process for American elections, Mitt Romney became very popular amongst the Republican Party in Utah, and Democrats enjoyed that and decided not to run a candidate this year. But instead, an independent, more conservative candidate decided to run, and that was a big mistake. In the state of Nevada, Jackie Rosen will win re-election for another 6-year term. She won her election by around 5 points, and she gained the seat for the Democratic Party in winning against a Republican incumbent who was the only Republican that won in a Clinton state. In the state of Montana, the 2 congressional districts, only one of them can be called for the Republicans. The other one is currently too early to call. In Idaho, the 2 congressional districts, and no shocker here, they will both go to the Republicans. In the state of Utah, there's a current dispute whether this map is legal or not, but currently it is currently called for the Republicans. In the state of Oregon, 2 of those seats have not been called. This is a mid change right now. 2 of those seats have not been called yet. One of them held by Republicans. The other one, Democrats have gerrymandered to give more leeway for their seats, but currently too early to call. In Nevada, 3 out of the 4 congressional districts will be awarded to Democrats. Democrats have been playing their cards with this map to give themselves a better advantage in the Senate race, in the House race. In the Montana governor's race, former Lieutenant Governor Mike Coney is currently trailing against Greg Ganefort. Currently a 6-point lead for Ganefort. Currently too early to call. In the state of Utah, the governor's race, Spencer Cox, the incumbent governor, will win re-election for another term. No shocker here. We have some more major race projections coming up right now. In the state of Wisconsin, we can now project that Joe Biden will win their 10 electoral votes. Not a big shocker here, considering that his poll numbers have been outstanding for the past few months. After the October surprise, his lead kept growing, and that's what propelled him to win the state. In the state of Missouri, 10 electoral votes. Donald Trump will be the winner of Missouri, former battleground state, now turned red state. In Kansas, 6 electoral votes. Donald Trump will win their 6 electoral votes. In the state of Michigan, in the Senate election, Elisa Slotkin will win the Senate election, taking over from Debbie Stabenow, and therefore will be the newest senator from Michigan. In Ohio, Sherrod Brown will win re-election for another 6-year term. Sherrod Brown was thought to have been a very vulnerable senator, considering that Trump won the state by 6 points back in 2016 and 2018, and therefore was very doomed was in a very bad situation. In the state of Virginia, we can now project that Democrats will gain 2 seats. They'll gain the 1st and 2nd congressional districts. First losing the 2nd congressional district back in 2022, and they haven't won the 1st congressional district in several decades. This is a huge win. This is a solid majority for the Democrats in Virginia. In the state of South Carolina, even though Republicans have maintain the majority in South Carolina, Democrats will gain the 1st congressional district, the first time since 2018. In New Jersey, a shocker for Democrats. Democrats will gain 2 seats in New Jersey, the 1st and 7th congressional districts. Both held by Republicans, obviously, but they won the 2nd congressional district, but mispronounced it. 2nd congressional district, first time since 2018, after the incumbent Democrat switched parties, and the Democrat lost in 2022 for the 7th congressional district. In Tennessee, we can project that Republicans will maintain all their seats in Tennessee. No shocker here. Although that district that we said that would be very close, ended up being single digits. We can now say the following polls will close in the following states: Washington and California. We can now project that California's 54 electoral votes will go to President Joe Biden. No shocker here. In the state of Washington, 12 electoral votes, one of the fastest growing states in the country, 12 electoral votes will go to Joe Biden. In the California Senate election, Barbara Lee will take over against Feinstein for the next 6 years. This is a shocker this isn't really a shocker considering that Democrats have been consistently electing their party for the next for solid majorities. God, I'm stumbling over my words. In the state of Washington, Maria Cantwell will win re-election for another 6 years. No shocker here. In the state of Washington, Democrats and Republicans will maintain their current makeup for the next 2 years. In the state of California, 8 races have not been called. All of these were held by Republicans. In fact, Democrats are able to maintain all of their previously maintained seats, but Republicans are in danger for possibly not keeping their own seats. In Washington, the governor's race, the incumbent governor decided not to run for re-election, even though he could have. Bob Ferguson will overtake him. We can now project a presidential election winner. Joe Biden has crossed the 270 electoral vote threshold to be re-elected for another 4-year term. Democrats retain the White House. This is in the presidential scale, Joe Biden has crossed the 270 margin with the help of California and Washington. Donald Trump has lost the presidency for a second time. 149 electoral votes have not been called yet. He could win all the states, although that is very unlikely considering that South Carolina went to Donald Trump by a lean margin, and that we still haven't called Hawaii yet. In the current standing in the Senate, nobody has outright taken the majority. We're still waiting on a bunch of races. 47 seats for Democrats, 45 seats for the Republicans, 7 seats have not been called, including Hawaii. For the House, Democrats have crossed the 200 House seat threshold. Republicans are still at 170. We're still waiting to hear from 55 House seats. And we got some more major race projections coming right up. In the state of Nebraska's 1st congressional district, Donald Trump will win Nebraska's 1st congressional district by around 9 points. This is one of the Joe Biden outperforming Barack Obama by about a percentage point. In the state of Utah, Donald Trump will win their 6 electoral votes, winning by a likely margin. This is the smallest margin since Lyndon B. Johnson. Yeah, I mean, since probably Richard Nixon. In Montana, 4 electoral votes will be awarded to Donald Trump. This is also the smallest margin since Barack Obama's losing the state by about 1 point in 2008. In Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, Joe Biden will win it by nearly doubling his performance back in 2020. In Arizona, a battleground state, he is chipping away over Donald Trump in battleground state after battleground state. 11 electoral votes will be won by President. In West Virginia, a shocker for the Democrats. The Senate election, Joe Manchin will win re-election. Not only will he win re-election, he will win by a bigger margin than previously expected and from his previous 2018 margin. This is shocking considering that he alienated a lot of Democratic votes. The Republican was alienating a lot of liberals and a bunch of conservatives for his far-right views and his violent views. But Joe Manchin was able to spin his re-election into something more conservative, more moderate, and that stuck with the people of Virginia. In the state of Arizona, Ruben Gallego will be the winner in Arizona Senate race, defeating Blake Masters and incumbent Kirsten Sinema. Democrats have gained the seat. They haven't really gained the seat, but they've gained or what they call a proper Democrat that is registered and will most likely vote for them in the Senate. This is a huge win if they can't get a proper majority. In the state of Ohio, Democrats will gain a seat. This is the second election cycle in a row where Democrats have have gained a seat in Ohio. This is big news considering that they have to redraw their congressional maps again. In the state of New York, Democrats gained 6 congressional districts. This is huge for the Democrats, considering that New York was one of their worst performing states in history for the 2022 midterms. In the state, currently polls closing in the following states: Alaska and Hawaii. We can now project that Alaska is too early to call. Right now, we're still waiting in votes. Currently, there's a lot of voting issues in. In the state of Hawaii, Joe Biden will win their 4 electoral votes. In the Senate race in Hawaii, Mazi Haramu will win there. In the House district of Alaska, Democrats will win that seat. In Hawaii, both congressional districts will be won by Democrats. We can now project that Democrats will retain the Senate for another 2 years, or unless there's any Senate special elections going on. Democrats wins in both Arizona and West Virginia has given them the ability to retain the Senate, even if they lose Montana and more seats. But Democrats retake the House. I repeat, they retake the House for another 2 years. Democrats gaining seats in New York, Virginia, New Jersey has given them the ability to retake the House. They were also able to retake the House by retaining all of their seats from the previous election cycle. This is huge news and a big blow to the Republicans. We got more major race projections coming up. In the state of North Carolina, 16 electoral votes. Joe Biden will win it for the first time since 2008. Democrats win North Carolina, flipping it and starting them the process of North Carolina trending towards the left. In Georgia, same here. Definitely not by 46 points, but I can project around 4 points. Georgia will be one. In Maine's 2nd congressional district, the first time since 2012, Democrats have won it. Joe Biden, the congressional district will be won by Joe Biden. In Montana, in the Senate race, Jon Tester will win re-election by his biggest margin yet. He has campaigned heavily on climate change, abortion access, veterans, mainly what helps the people of Montana, and has really helped him out. Montana is a very pro-choice state, and when Ryan Zieke came out pro-life, Jon Tester was very clear to come out after that. In the state of Colorado, Lauren Boebert has officially lost re-election. She will not be re-elected to another term, and Democrats will gain a solid majority in Colorado. In the state of Minnesota, Democrats retake the majority in the House after so long, since 2018, for the first time in 6 years. Democrats have gained the 1st congressional district. In New Mexico, Democrats will retain all of their seats in New Mexico, clearly showing that their gerrymandering has worked. In the state of Missouri, shocking for the governor's race, Crystal Quade, by the smallest margin, will gain the governor's seat in Missouri. And in the Senate race, the Quinton Lucas will gain the Senate seat for the Democrats, the first time in 6 years. Democrats projected to win. In the current standings for the presidential election, Joe Biden has 320 electoral votes. 96 electoral votes haven't been called yet. Donald Trump is only at 122 electoral votes. Currently, Joe Biden is expected to expand on that lead if he wins Texas or possibly even Ohio or Iowa. And in the Senate elections, Democrats have gained a solid majority, so therefore they will gain all their committees. Republicans only have 45. 3 Senate seats have not been called yet. And in the House elections, Democrats have crossed the threshold. 223 seats they have 173 for the Republicans. 39 have not been called yet. We're still waiting on more results. And in the governor's race, Republicans have the majority in there, but we're still waiting on 2 governor's races right now. Democrats could gain those seats and possibly have a 26-24 majority. We got more major race projections coming up right now. In the state of Ohio, destroying Donald Trump, but destroying Donald Trump's chances of any fighting for fighting this election. Joe Biden will win the state of Ohio by 4 points. In the state of Iowa, another blow to Donald Trump, right around 2.5 points. 6 electoral votes be awarded to Iowa. In the state of Florida, it is currently too close to call. Joe Biden has a slight lead over Donald Trump. This is his home state. 30 electoral votes at stake. In the state of Arizona, Democrats gained 4 seats in Arizona, and they absolutely obliterated the Republicans. In the state of Montana, Democrats have officially gained a seat. They gained that sole congressional district. This splits Montana in half for the first time in decades. In Pennsylvania, Democrats gain a likely majority in the House districts. They've gained 2 congressional districts. The first, and I believe that's the 10th congressional district. One of those districts was won by Joe Biden back in 2020, and both those districts were won by Republicans by single digits back in 2022. In the state of North Carolina, the governor's race, Josh Stein will win the governorship continuing a Democratic streak for another 4 years for Democrats. In Montana, this is a huge blow to the Republicans. Former Lieutenant Governor Mike Coney will win the governor's race. He lost the governor's race back in 2020. Will now rewrite his mistakes back in the history books. We got more major race projections coming up right now. They're coming in right now. In the state of Alaska, 3 electoral votes will be awarded to Donald Trump. But what is shocking is that his margin of victory is going to be way smaller than usual. This will be the smallest margin of victory for any Republican since George H.W. Bush back in 1992. In the state of Florida, Donald Trump's home state, this is a huge blow to the former president of the United States. 30 electoral votes will be awarded to Joe Biden. And in the state of Texas, for the first time since 1980, Donald Trump will lose the state of Texas for the first time. This is a huge blow to Republicans. This is a huge blow to the Republicans right now. Yes, this is a huge blow to the Republican Party, and yes, this is the first time a Democrat has won the presidential election with Texas since 1976. This is a huge blow for the Republicans. And the Senate race in Indiana, Joe Hogsett will gain the Senate seat for Democrats. This is huge. This continues a streak of Democrats winning in Indiana for another 6 years. And in the Senate race for Texas, Nathan Johnson will win the Senate race against Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz being very disliked for his views on abortion, LGBTQ plus rights, immigration rights, his policies towards the war in Ukraine. Nathan Johnson was considered a front runner, and when Beto O'Rourke endorsed him, his poll numbers skyrocketed. And in Florida, in the Senate race, Lauren Brooke will win the Senate race in Florida against Rick Scott. What destroyed Rick Scott's chance in the Senate election was his decision to try and lead the Republican Party in the Senate when Mitch McConnell tried to, and then Rick Scott destroyed the Republicans when he decided their policies. And in the state of Michigan, Democrats will gain the 1 seat they nearly gained back in 2022. John James will lose re-election. Democrats have a likely majority in the House now. And in Iowa, it is a split majority for both Democrats and Republicans. This reflects the state now and is a better representation. And in the state of Oregon, Democrats will gain the Senate, not the Senate seat, but they will gain the House district. They lost back in 2022. This is a huge win for Democrats. And in Nebraska, Democrats will finally gain the Senate, not the Senate, my God, gain the congressional district. They've been so wanting, they so badly want. They won the seat in 2014, and now they officially gained it back. As of right now, there are many more races to be called. We can officially call all of them now for the House. Here they are. Wisconsin, Democrats have gained 2 seats, and now there is a split majority, while Missouri stays the same. We can now project that North Carolina Democrats will gain 1 seat from the previous election that they couldn't gain. That was Madison Cawthorn's previous seat. Now they've gained that. And Democrats missed the opportunity to gain a majority in Florida, but they have gained numerous House seats. They have gained 4 congressional districts. And in the state of Texas, Democrats were able to gain 2 congressional districts in there despite the gerrymandering. And Democrats gained 7 seats from areas where they lost back in 2020 and 2022. Gaining these seats have made the GOP lose their mind, and they've lost even more Hispanic and more Asian American voters. Here are the current standings for president: 413 electoral votes for Joe Biden. Donald Trump has 125. This is a landslide victory for the incumbent president. He has flipped Maine's 2nd congressional district, North Carolina, Florida, Texas, Ohio, Iowa, and that is pretty much it. And has narrowed up his margins in Mississippi, South Carolina, Alaska, Missouri, Kansas, Utah, Missouri, and Nebraska's first congressional district, and Nebraska at large. And in the Senate race, Democrats were able to gain 4 seats. My IT department is getting fired. The seats they've gained were Florida, Texas, Missouri, and Indiana. Well, if you can count Arizona as well. And in the House elections, Democrats are able to gain a huge majority in the House elections, going over the 240 seat threshold, and will have a massive majority in there to do what President Joe Biden wanted to do 2 years ago, but now can get done. And in the governor's race, Democrats were able to gain Montana and Missouri. They were able to hold North Carolina. Democrats have a huge shot at retaining the majority in the governorships next year, but right now Democrats gain 2 governor seats. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, hit and smash that subscribe button, please. That would help me a lot. We are very close to 50 subscribers. Let's see if we can do that. There will be a Republican Dream scenario coming up in the future. I do not doubt that. There will be more content coming up. Please check out my other videos to see what I'm doing, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya.